everybody. Welcome back to the Obsessed with Pickleball podcast. I'm Jane. I'm obsessed with pickleball, and this is the final podcast of 2025. I love New Year's. I love getting through all the stress of the holidays, New Year's Eve, New Year's Day, starting fresh. I think every year my New Year's resolution revolves around getting my duper up. And I failed the last 2 years. So I'm going to do what any smart, logical person would do. And I'm going to make the same New Year's resolution again this year. So check back in January. My duper journey is going to be on. I barely play anymore. I probably play like once a week, which is crazy because I used to play every single day, like forcing myself to take a day off. So I think in January, I haven't decided if I'm going to do another 30-day pickleball challenge like I did 2 years ago. I'm considering it, but I have also started getting like some other interests besides pickleball, which I know is crazy. I'm doing Pilates. I started watching a bunch of random sports. Over the weekend, I caught the finals of the women's NCAA college volleyball championships, and those girls were wildly athletic. That was crazy. They're so tall, they jump so high. It was insane. Anyway, but pickleball is still number one. So next year I am going to get my duper up. I've always been saying I want to get a 4-5 feels overly ambitious. So I was like a 4-4. But honestly, if by the end of 2026 I can get it to a 4-0, I think I would be like the happiest girl in the entire world. So another thing about this year and this new year is, I don't know if you know this, I don't know if you're an astrology girly or not, but this isn't even technically astrology, I don't think. Oh, it is. 2025 was the year of the snake. And what that means it's the year of shedding your skin, of transformation, of letting go of everything that doesn't serve you, and basically just having a rebirth. It's like the years cycle, and you need to do this every few years. Can't remember if it's 7 or 9. So basically I'm a fake astrology girly who just does whatever TikTok tells her. But it's like your skincare routine. Every 3, 4, 5 days, depending on your skin, you need to exfoliate. And that's what the year of the snake is. Now, 2026 is going to be the year of the horse. And it's all about galloping into the next phase of your life, taking control of life, and just, being like a horse. So I'm excited for what 2026 will bring. I love like the question marks, like who knows? So we'll see you then. For pickleball, what does it mean? In terms of pro pickleball, that's a great question. What did we shed this year? Well, the UPA tried to shed a few players. So let's talk about that. We have some updates on the contract cancellations of Ryan Fu, James Ignatowich, and Vivian Glozman. They are now suing. Is it called suing? They're appealing. They're appealing the decision and basically saying like there's nothing in the contracts that said we couldn't do this. And what I think is really interesting is they'll go back and forth. I don't know where they'll end, but the World Pickleball Players Association is helping them with this appeal, which I figured would happen. I mean, that's what they're there for. And if we look back a little while ago, that organization was started by Colin Johns, Tina Pisnick, Deckel Barr, Jesse Irvin, Gabe Tardio. I might be missing a player, but they're like the lead ones. And it was about contract negotiations and standardized courts, things like that, which we know Colin Johns is a big proponent, and he's trying to do a lot to both the Johns brothers create a standard of playing conditions. So when this happened, I figured, hey, isn't this why you're here, to help the players when the UPA does something? And the UPA countered that, not here, but before, with their own players association that they then elected Zane Navratil to be the head of. And all the players voted on that. And I always thought, what is the point of having a players association that is backed by the association that the players need protecting from? It's like you would not have a union being I'm not a union expert, but when I worked on a lot of film sets, there was unions are essentially there to protect the crew from the studio. So if you had a studio creating the union and backing the union and organizing the union, are they really in the best place to protect the players? Now, maybe this association has like kind of a different role than what a traditional union would do that's protecting like working hours and things like that. I don't know. I would love to get a little bit more information about it, and maybe I need to do some research and look at it next year. I think this situation with these players is it's inspired me again to look at that dynamic because I always thought that was very strange when it happened. Again, coming from a time when I dealt with the unions a lot, both as a producer who had to follow the union rules and as a crew member who was protected by those rules. And, like as a producer, you respect them, right? You understand why the union's there, even though sometimes it's definitely annoying, but it's the best for everyone. So they're appealing that. So we'll see what happens there. The next big hot topic that people are really talking about now is counterfeit paddles. You can find tons of articles online about it, but recently I was reading it today, and the PPA, the APP, or the UPA, APP, US Pickleball Association, basically every legitimate or big pickleball association is teaming up together to combat counterfeit paddles, claiming that they're going to be unsafe because they're not fully monitored, right? Which I totally get. That's a really, really good point. So here's my question about it, my issue about it. The problem when things like this happen that I have a really hard time buying the genuine concern of the safety is that, one, we saw Caitlin Christian today. This weekend take a huge hit from Jay DeVilliers in the eye, and he was using a certified paddle. When the mods came out, they were very dangerous, and that was fine. Everyone had to return them, but people were using them and still are using them. The Yolas, the Gen 3 Yolas were crazy hot. I remember when I first started playing with them in the rec plays, like at parks and stuff, people put a little weight on their Gen 3 and it was terrifying. Like these, bangers who already hit the ball so hard, then had a Gen 3 with a little weight on it. That was crazy. But safety wasn't a concern there. Here's the problem with counterfeit paddles is that they are a financial threat to these paddle companies that are making these super expensive paddles. So you have companies, let's say you're Yola and there's a counterfeit paddle that people are buying instead of your paddle. That threatens your bottom line, obviously. Happens across the board. We get that with designer. It's kind of different with designer bags because people consider that more, I don't know, there's a little bit like artistic trademark, but the same thing happens with designer bags. It's going to affect your bottom line if people are buying the knockoff version of your product. Of course. But then, okay, let's talk about Yola. Let's talk about Selkirk. Let's talk about Proton. These are big sponsors for all these other tournaments. So if you're the PPA and your biggest sponsor, Yola, is complaining about this, like, hey, stop, we have to deal with this, you're going to want to take care of your biggest sponsor, right? That's just logical. So while we may want to think, and it may be true that safety is the number one concern, there's also a financial concern there, which, gives me some question marks. And here's the problem. Paddle companies, do you not see how this was inevitable? You have priced these paddles so astronomically, and the technology hasn't caught up to the price. So, okay, $300 paddle. I would buy that $300 paddle gladly because it does make you play better. Like, it's not a joke, right? Like, when the next new paddle comes out, you use it because it makes you play better. And somehow we've all of us rec pickleball players have gotten to this like mindset where like we're trying to get better for what reason? I don't know, just like for fun. But I need the newest paddle or I can't compete. I can't go play with my same group and they're all using the new Yolas and using the old Yola and I can't hit as hard as them and I can't compete. That's not fun. So I'm going to buy the paddle. The problem is that, and this isn't just a Yola thing, this is just paddles. We know that based on all paddle technology. We hear the pros saying for most of the brands that they use, like you have to replace your paddle quite frequently. And I never played tennis, but I think this is the same as tennis strings. I don't know how expensive tennis strings are, but you don't have to get a new racket. You just have to do your strings. I don't know. But the paddle, you have to replace the paddle frequently, especially if you're playing often. So that's the issue, right? Like when I used to play lacrosse, they would come out with better lacrosse sticks all the time. But you would buy the lacrosse stick and you could use it for at least the whole season before the next round of new sticks came out. So sure, let's say that there's a year between new generation of a paddle. I still have to replace my paddle at least once in that year to keep it being good. So where am I getting here? You can't overprice the paddles and put us in a situation where we have to replace them frequently and not expect people to get counterfeits. I have a lot of friends who get their paddles from Alibaba and they say they're just like the other paddles. Now, these people aren't playing tournaments. They're just in the parks, right? But that's still affecting the financials of the regular paddle brands. And technically, they're still not being monitored, so they could be unsafe. But you're never going to stop that. You're never going to stop some random player who plays constantly and is tired of spending that much money, but also wants to win the games they're playing at from doing a knockoff. So what's my point here? My point is that I don't know how we go back. And this is kind of like a cyclical issue in capitalism. How do we go back to making paddles affordable? Where if I'm doing my monthly budget for the year, and let's say I have to buy 3 paddles, and I split that up monthly, so that's one every 4 months. And I take my $300 paddle and I divide it by 4. Let's say, I don't know, that's hard math. Let's say I have to take my $240 paddle and divide it by 4. Now I'm having a $60 a month paddle budget line. I might have done the math wrong. I'm just thinking of this on the spot. $60 a month on paddles. If I'm playing at a public park, I did the math when I was looking at the difference between paying for courts and not paying for courts and there's a park locally. You go play with your friends for 2 hours. It's $4 a person. Now let's say I play at that park 10 times a month. $40, right? Add that to my $60 paddle. Now I have $100 spent on pickleball a month. And that doesn't include paying for an expensive court sometimes. That doesn't include buying balls. That doesn't include tournaments. That doesn't include anything. So we make jokes about how expensive it is to be a pickleball player. But when you break it down, if you're looking at $120 a month on pickleball, at the bare minimum, that's still like a considerable amount of money to think about when you're talking about a sport that we consider like recreation in the park. Okay, someone can fact check all those numbers, but I was surprised that when I looked at my bare minimum pickleball expenses, because I also pay for nicer courts when I can't get into the park. And what if I need new shoes? Like there are other ones, but my bare minimum monthly is about $120. That's not including when I have to pay $30 for a court. That's crazy. Like you're up to $300 a month on pickleball. Anyway, so paddle companies, we're in a real tough spot because people can't afford your paddles, but they still want to play well. So they're doing counterfeit paddles. What are we going to do about it? I just think it's important when we're reading articles like that about all of the pickleball associations coming together to fight an issue, to follow the money. Like, what is really the issue here? Is it the safety or is it the money? Maybe it's 50-50, but don't forget, it's also the money. Okay, guys, should we get into this last week's tournament? PPA Daytona Beach. I actually love tournaments like this that are smaller and when some of the top players don't come to these tournaments because we do get different matchups and different chances for players to come out on top. But this tournament was really fun, and I got to watch a lot of it, which I loved. Big stories, everyone coming in. What's going to happen with Annalie Waters and Georgia Johnson? I mean, they were insanely good. I What else is there to say? I think the second best player oscillates between Georgia and Anna Bright. I'm not surprised that her and Annalie did so well. Um, and then you had Catherine Prento and Hurricane Tyra Black, another team to look out for. They made it to the finals. They made it through relatively easily. I thought they'd have a harder matchup with Etta Tuanitoa and Rachel Rohrabacher, but women's doubles, chalk across the board, great. Now we do have Tina Pisnik and Megan Dizon winning bronze, which is great. And I do like that partnership because I think even though Megan is a right-sided player and Tina is a left-sided player, Megan brings more firepower, which is kind of backwards. So it's like Tina now has somebody who has like a ton of offense, and not taking away from Kate Fahey, who also had offense, but she was a little bit more steady like Tina. So I want to see how this dynamic works because they're moving into 2026 playing together. I didn't know that till I just saw the post. And I'm like, that's a cool partnership. I don't know who Kate's playing with. So I'm excited to see all the new partnerships for next year. That's like the Christmas gift that comes later, right? Like the new partnerships that we can talk about. It's very exciting. Another storyline is Catherine Prento won her first gold medal in singles since 2023. Now, Catherine used to be the second best singles player, and she was um, going up against Annalie, Leia, Callie Smith. Those were like the top four, and then some new names started coming in. But ultimately, like these young tennis players came in and they just hit the ball so crazy hard. Like the old school play that Leia and Catherine were doing, which was a lot of coming in. So it would start out tennis, right? Like the women's lower level, I don't know, lower level, a lot of baseline stuff. Then they started coming in and being a little more tricky. You see that with Leia, you see that with Catherine, you see that with Annalie. Then it's with the new paddle technology and the younger tennis players coming in who just hit the crap out of the ball. You saw when Paris Todd came onto the scene. Um, um, Catherine's game didn't really catch up. So there were a lot of upsets this time around that kind of helped her avoid Caitlin Christian, for example. But she did have to face Leia in the semifinals. Now, I was so excited for this matchup. Like, this is old school rivalry, you guys. Like, when they said that they've only played against each other, like, in the teens, it wasn't even the 26, like, that doesn't feel real. I feel like I've watched them play against each other infinity times, but they played together. But the match wasn't the crazy, tough contest that we thought it was going to be. Leia did not play her best. Pretty early in the match, you saw her on the sidelines checking her insulin levels, I think giving herself an injection or something. I don't know the math, but it was kind of, I don't know, that sucked. Like you wanted them to have the best match, and it didn't seem like Leia was feeling her best. But I do two things I want to say. One is like a lot of compliments for Leia, but one I always think is funny is that the announcers are like, oh, we don't talk about Leia struggling with diabetes. Like I'm like, I feel like we talk about it all the time. But I will say, seeing her on the side, that's just funny to me. This is not a hit on whether or not Leia should talk more about her diabetes. Talk about all you want, girl. I just think it's funny when they're like, we never talk about it. I'm like, you guys have very few. Everyone has a thing that they remember about a player. Like every time Dylan's playing, we talk about how he doesn't have a racket sport background. Like every time. And then a lot of times when Leia's playing, they bring up her diabetes. So that's just funny. I mean, the Dylan thing is so funny. Every time he's playing, I'm like, if I could tally all the times I talk about him not having a racket sport background, I'd be so rich. Okay. But when I was seeing her on the sideline that time struggling, I was like, that's crazy that she still does this. I mean, it just seems so hard sometimes. And she's just like, no, but I love pickleball. And it got me thinking because she had been commentating that in this tournament. And there are a lot of players who commentate. But I think one of the reasons why people like her commentating so much, and I have been thinking about it, because I love when she commentates as well. Is it the strategy? Because other people give good strategy. Like, of all the players, when they're commentating, she seems like she's enjoying watching the match the most. Like, she is us. She's watching the match and she's like entertained and excited, even though she's probably watched those players a ton of times. Pickleball for years, like, and every match she's still like entertained while giving us the feedback. So I think you can say uh Leia has a lot of she'll post something on Twitter and people will react strongly to it, to whatever. But I think she has much more fans than she has haters, but she's very vocal about how she knows she has some haters. But you cannot say that Leia Jansen doesn't love pickleball. So I had that like kind of realization when I was listening to her commentating this week. I'm like, oh, she's really into this match. And I like that. But her match with Catherine wasn't that great. And then Catherine met Katarina Stewart in the finals. She is a big newbie, doing well in the Challenger Series, I think. Maybe played some APP, but there were a lot of people at this tournament who had good records and played well in Challenger events. And when they came out with the Challenger events, I was like, this is strange. What is this? Obviously, creative financial decisions for the UPA, which I always support. Any company that finds new ways to make money, as long as they're on the up and up, I'm like fine with. So you want to do Challenger Series to make more money? Do it. But then I saw some of the lower level PPA pros, Eric Roddy, Case and Campbell, things like that, playing the Challenger. But so then the Challenger level people have less chance to win. But actually, it's better, right? It's like, here, you're a lower level PPA player. You're getting beat by all these people. You never get to play that many games in the tournament. So you come down here and you have a chance to have farther runs because you're not playing Ben Johns. And then you're a newbie, just a Challenger player, not signed at all. You now don't have to just play other Challenger players. You get to play a UPA contracted pro, which is probably the only way that you're going to be able to prove that you also deserve a contract. So, yeah, I can win every Challenger, but what makes that different than winning local money balls, right? So now you get to play some of the contracted pros and they're allowed to play those events. So it's good for everyone. So I really like it. Good job, UPA. I think that was very strategic and a great decision and great for the players. What else am I saying? Mixed doubles, George and J-Dub look amazing. They played so well. I think something that is hard with George and J-Dub always facing off against Ben and Anna Leigh, and why people talk about my absolute least favorite question is who should J-Dub play with instead of Georgia, because Georgia is elite, is I do think there's something mental there where they have a hard time playing their best against Anna Leigh and Ben. There's like a mental block, which I think exists with a lot of teams. I would say that's the big one right now, where I think they actually are more evenly matched than they come off with in their matchups. I think the Johnsons should have a few more wins against Ben and Anna Leigh. But this weekend, there was no Ben Johns. Anna Leigh didn't play mix, and they just looked insanely dominant. Andre Diescu and Caitlin Christian, they made a great run to the finals. They beat Catherine Prento and Deco Bar. I mean, this isn't surprising. Andre Diescu is so good at mixed. He's so level-headed. He would be an amazing mixed partner to team up with. To me, he might be the ideal mixed partner if I was to team up with someone, because he's like very supportive as well as being very good. And I do need that. And it was a great win for Caitlin. It was a good opportunity for her to play mixed with one of the top players. But at the end of the day, when you're watching their match against J-Dub and Georgia, one thing I think, J-Dub and Georgia play a million times together. This is Andre and Caitlin Christian's first tournament together. Honestly, if they had beat the Johnsons, it actually would have been shocking. It would have been one of the craziest upsets either. But Caitlin's dinks were popping up. They were a little too high. And when you're dealing with both George and J-Dub can reach in and flick it, you have an issue. And you just look and you're like, you know what? We all need to drill our dinks. Sometimes we forget. We want to practice fancy shots, but drill your dinks because they can be the difference, especially If you're a woman playing mixed doubles, drill your forehand dinks. Do not lose a dink battle. In men's doubles, few upsets. Christian and Alshon, and Christian Alshon lose. Andre Descu and Gabe lose to Riley and Noe in probably the best match of the tournament. They make it to the finals, and they're facing off against Augie, Ga, and JW Johnson. Now, I'm part of the Flash Mob, and Augie and JW are, in theory, my favorite team. But there's just something about Riley that I can't help cheering for still. I'm an OG lover, you know this, and I went to Riley's clinic, and he was so fun, and I loved his rivalry with Ben. I miss those good old days, and he's so much fun to watch play that I cannot help not rooting for him. He is giving a crowd engagement better than anyone else. Jaume Martinez-Vic does it a lot as well, but him doing a good shot and revving up the crowd is very like classic Riley, and I loved it. So I was cheering for him in the finals. That match went to 5 games. And I think the reason why I'm saying the other match was a little better than this one is because the games were closer, where in this one, by the time we got to the 5th game, J-Dub and Augie were kind of like feeling their groove, so we knew it was going to happen. But this is Augie's first PPA gold medal. Big congratulations to Augie. The whole Dallas Flash team were on the sideline cheering for him. Georgia had just beat Tyra in the finals, but they are obviously besties. They were cheering for J-Dub and Augie. Augie and J-Dub were cheering for Georgia and J-Dub. The whole team, Julie was there. It was so weird, you guys, seeing Julie and Lee sitting next to each other on the bench. I was like, this is... And they're both like brunette moms, so they kind of look alike. Like, not like you would think they were sisters, like they kind of look alike. So it was like, okay, mom zone. But it was really cute, and they were all hugging at the end, and it was so happy. And then it just made me remember that they could get separated next year. And the thought of that is just heartbreaking, because who goes? It's going to be J-Dub or Tyra, and it's hard to imagine it being J-Dub, but it's also hard to imagine it being Tyra. So I don't know what they're going to do, but if they need a GoFundMe page, if I need to donate to their bank accounts so that they can purchase their whatever player back, I will. I don't have any money, but I'm good for like, well, if I buy a counterfeit paddle, then I'm good for like an extra $300 this year, which hopefully will make a big difference. But yeah, that was sad. It was a really fun tournament. Jay DeVilliers and Callie Smith had made it to the semifinals, which was amazing for them. Jay is playing really, really, really good pickleball, and I'm very happy about that. I love Jay DeVilliers. I'm excited to see him and Jessie together next year. I had said in the last podcast that there was a chance that Jessie Irvin and Gabe Tardio could make it to a final, and they made it to the semifinals, but they couldn't take that one. Oh, okay, good. I'm glad I remember, guys. This is the most important thing, and we'll leave with this. Semifinals, J-Dub and Georgia versus Gabe and Jessie. Gabe and Jessie have beaten J-Dub and Georgia before. Gabe was part of the JJA, the Julie Johnson Academy. He grew up playing with J-Dub and Georgia. They were like besties from childhood. And we don't really see them hanging out much anymore, but there's definitely a chance that Gabe and Jessie could have taken it. Now, again, J-Dub and Georgia are my favorite mixed team, but I love a storyline. And I did kind of want Jessie and Gabe to win gold this weekend, because it just would have been great. Their last tournament together, win gold. But something happens during the match, and Georgia Johnson goes insane. And I think it's a lesson for all the players out there that they don't mess with Georgia, because towards the beginning of the match, now I was coming from something and I didn't tune in until game 3. So I didn't see what went down, but I just saw Georgia being crazy. Meech was talking about it. I asked my sister what happened. And basically in the beginning, I think first game, Georgia body bagged J-Dub. Okay, fine. No biggie. You know, J-Dub probably didn't even flinch. She doesn't care. But she said something. They're walking back to the line, Georgia and J-Dub, after losing the point. And she said something like, got him. And Georgia whips her head around like, excuse me, but with so much attitude. Like, you want to mess with anyone, that's fine. But like, you better not mess with Georgia Johnson's brother. That's her brother. And you crossed the line. She probably wouldn't have cared if you said it about her. But about J-Dub, she is the number one J-Dub protector in the entire world. Like, that's her brother. So after that happened, she went crazy and screamed after every point, was so hyped, played so well, like screamed after every point. And Leia was in the booth for this one. And she said something like, okay, everyone's like so on Kate Fahey's ass about how she screams. Look at Georgia screaming too. And I was like, that's so true. Georgia screams just as much as Kate and no one cares. And I was thinking, why is it true? I'm like, this is what Kate does different, you guys. After she screams, she makes the meanest face. Like, she is so pretty and has such a nice face. And then after she screams, her eyes get so crazy intense. And I'm like, how does that much like glare down happen to someone? And I think that's the difference. Like if like Georgia doesn't do that, and that I think that's the visual difference that people get hung up on. Now, I am in the camp that I don't really care if Kate screams. I like it. It's fun. I don't like when she hits her head with her paddle because ouch. And also like CTE is real. I don't know if you've seen the NFL recently, but we've got a lot of people in the giant helmets, and I don't think that would be cute with your St. Louis Shock uniform. Who are the St. Louis Shock going to drop, you guys? Ugh, everything is so interesting. I think it has to be Gabe. I think they're going to drop Gabe. I can't wait for MLP. They just released the schedule. I'm trying to figure out if I'm going to be able to go anywhere that isn't local, but I'm thinking Columbus again. I'm thinking Austin. See, when I say 120 is my minimum pickleball budget a month, now let's start factoring all these tournaments. I'm like $1,000 a month in pickleball. Anyway, so Georgia goes crazy and they end up winning. And then Gabe and Jesse don't win bronze either, which I was disappointed in because I wanted their last tournament them to leave with a win, but it's fine. On to the next. It'll be so interesting to see if Gabe and Catherine actually have better results than Gabe and Jesse. I'm so curious. For everybody out there, I hope that you have a wonderful holiday season. Maybe you've already celebrated. Maybe it's coming up. I know this is cheesy, so I'm just going to say it anyway. I was on a flight from Thanksgiving coming home. And when we were landing, you know how they say, oh, thank you for choosing, blah, 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 blah. And this woman said, the flight attendant said on the thing, and I'm just going to pay it forward because I thought it was like actually really beautiful. She said, you know, we hope you guys had a wonderful Thanksgiving, but I want to acknowledge that the holidays aren't great for everyone. And some of you may not have had a good Thanksgiving, and some of you may not be coming from a place you wanted to have been at. You might have been dealing with hard times during the holidays. They're not easy for anyone. And if that's the case for you, and you know you had a challenge, I'm going to be standing at the front of the plane with my hands out. Like, you know, feel free to come and take some comfort. I don't remember what she said, but basically, I thought it was just so different and like so human. I started crying. And I was just like, that is true. Like the holidays aren't easy for everyone. So if you are going to have a tough holiday season, and you always do, you are not alone. You are seen. So I'm walking out of the airplane. She literally just has her hands out. And people just like are taking their hands and they're just like, thank you. And then they walk away. And I was like, this is crazy that she did this. Anyway, I'm just sharing that because it was very human. So I hope everybody has a safe Christmas, safe Hanukkah, safe New Year's, and we will be back in January for the Masters. I am going. You guys, this is not happy holidays to inform you that the prices for the Masters are insane. It's like $180 for courtside on Saturday. $180. It used to be like $40 for the day. Then it was like $50 morning, $50 afternoon, and now it's $180 at all. And that's for the sunny part. If you want the shady part, it's like $250. And then if you want VIP, it's like $400. So I have to like figure out how I'm going to do it. I think I'm going to go Friday. I'm not going to pay for courtside. I'm going to watch grandstand because sometimes better matches on there anyway. That's quarterfinals. Then semifinal Saturday, which is probably the best day, I will pay. Got to get there early. Got to get your seat because heaven forbid, everyone will be saving seats. So you better get there early. And then I'll skip Championship Sunday. It's too expensive. It's not that fun. Anyway, I don't know why I'm sharing my strategy, but that's what I'm going to do. contemplating playing in this because I haven't played a PPA tournament in a while, but now that's $130 to enter. So to go to that tournament, also PPA hasn't approved my media pass. I always get a media pass, and I'm a little scared that they're mad at me, um, which is fine, but I really don't want to pay. So please give me my media pass, PPA. I love you. I'm your biggest fan. You can do no wrong. You're the best. Okay, so that's it. Follow me on Instagram, Obsessed with Pickleball. On TikTok, Obsessed with Pickleball Pod. X, Obsessed with Pickleball. Follow this podcast so you can get notified when new episodes come out. And yeah, I'll see you on the next one.